I never imagined my life could unravel like this, especially at the hands of someone in my own family. Every day I carry a secret so heavy it's crushing me. When I look at my husband, David, all I see is the lie I'm living. He has no idea what happened, and it's tearing me apart. My nephew, Sylvester, did something that shattered everything I thought I knew. What happened in that bedroom changed everything, and I've been lost ever since. My name is Anne, and I am broken. I swore I'd never tell anyone this story, but the guilt is killing me inside. David has always been the light of my life. Hearing him laugh, seeing him with our kids, and watching him love me without knowing the truth, it all breaks me a little more each day. And when he tells me he loves me, it hurts even more because he doesn't know. He doesn't know about the betrayal that has stained our life together. I met David in college, and our love story was something out of a dream. We were inseparable from the start, and it didn't take long before we both knew we were meant to be together. Moving in with him after college felt like the most natural step, and soon after, he proposed. Our wedding wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect, and we began building a life full of love and trust. But all of that changed when Sylvester came into our lives, and I still don't understand how I let it happen. The truth is painful, and even now I don't fully know how to make sense of it. But I need to share this, if only to release the guilt that's eating away at me. David and I were living the life we had always dreamed of. After we got married, everything seemed to fall into place perfectly. We pushed each other in our careers, spent our days laughing, planning vacations, and enjoying life. David would surprise me with trips, and we were so in love that nothing seemed like it could break us. One of the best trips we ever took was to Mexico. I still remember that trip so clearly. It was like we lived by pure instinct, choosing a hotel, the restaurants, the clubs, the food, everything without a plan. David was spontaneous, and we had the time of our lives. The last night in Mexico was one I'll never forget. We drank too much, partied all night, and when we got back to the hotel, David made love to me in a way that felt like the world was ending. It was wild, intense, and pure. But when we returned home, everything changed. That's when Sylvester, my brother's son, entered the picture, and it all went downhill. Sylvester, or Sly as we called him, was 20 years old, newly admitted to Caltech, and my brother asked if he could stop by whenever he needed anything since we lived close to the campus. It seemed innocent enough, and when I saw him for the first time, I was shocked. He was no longer the little boy I remembered. He had grown into a handsome, charming young man. His resemblance to my dad only made me feel more connected to him, and in a strange way, I felt like I was seeing my father again. That might have been the first mistake. When my brother introduced him to David and me, I gave Sly a big hug, maybe too big. In that moment, I was caught up in the nostalgia of seeing my dad's face in Sly. I wasn't prepared for the feelings that would come later, or how they would take control of me. Sly stayed with us for 3 days before moving to his dorm, and during those 3 days, I found myself drawn to him in ways that were completely inappropriate. David worked long hours, and I was home working remotely. Sly and I spent a lot of time together, talking about everything. He was charming, and his intelligence and confidence drew me in even more. He would make breakfast, come to my room to wake me up, and we spent hours talking like old friends. On the second morning of his stay, he came into my room, and I almost threw myself at him, mistaking him for David. When I hugged him, I held on longer than I should have. In that moment, I felt something I didn't want to feel. I was high on the attention, on the way Sly made me feel alive again. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. He was my nephew, yet I was drawn to him in ways I couldn't explain. When Sly left for his dorm, it felt like a part of me left with him. I found myself making excuses to visit him at Caltech. I would leave work early and drive an hour just to see him, twice a week, sometimes more. We would hang out like teenagers, talking and laughing. I felt young again, alive in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I wasn't old by any means, but there was something about Sly that made me feel new. David eventually noticed how often I was going to see Sly. He didn't think I was having an affair, he just found it odd that I was visiting him so much. He confronted me one night, asking me to give Sly some space. He said Sly needed to make friends and grow without me hovering over him. At the time, I couldn't see how right David was. Instead, I got defensive. We had a heated argument, and I told him he wasn't the boss of me. It wasn't about Sly, not really. I just didn't want David to control me, even though he wasn't trying to. I was being stubborn, refusing to see how inappropriate my actions were. David pleaded with me, but I refused to listen. I stopped talking to him for days. I was so consumed with my obsession with Sly that I didn't care how it was affecting my marriage. But after some time, I began to realize how much damage I was doing to my relationship with David. I finally stopped visiting Sly, and life slowly went back to normal. Or at least that's what I made David believe. David and I reconnected in a big way. We went on dates, had wild, spontaneous sex in places we shouldn't, like at a football game where I took him in the parking lot after teasing him in the stands. It felt like I was trying to make up for my obsession with Sly by giving David the wildness that I had been thinking about with someone else. But it wasn't the same. In my mind, it wasn't David I was with, it was Sly. I imagined his strong arms, his youthful energy. I couldn't get him out of my head. And then came the day Sly returned. It was a normal Friday. David had gone to work, and I was cleaning the house, dressed casually in one of David's shirts and a pair of netted panties. I was in a playful mood, dancing around the living room to a song I can't even remember now. That's when Sly walked in. I wasn't expecting anyone, so when I saw him, I froze. We locked eyes, and the tension in the air was thick. Instead of running upstairs to change, I stayed. I swayed to the music, bending down to clean, moving slowly, knowing Sly was watching me. There was something electric in the air. I don't know why I didn't stop it then, but I didn't. After cleaning, I went upstairs to take a shower and realized I didn't have a towel. I called out to Sly to grab one for me, and he brought it up, standing at the door. That's when everything shifted. I came out of the bathroom, wrapped in the towel, and we stood there, staring at each other. The silence was unbearable, and then Sly kissed me. It was quick, unexpected, but I didn't stop him. After a moment, I pushed him away, but the damage was done. We both knew what was about to happen. I sat on the bed, and he sat beside me. When I asked him if we should really do this, he didn't answer. Instead, he kissed me again, this time on my neck, and I gave in. It was like everything I had been suppressing came rushing to the surface. In that moment, nothing else mattered but him. Sly took me, slowly at first, exploring every part of me like he had all the time in the world. It wasn't hurried or secretive, it was like he owned me and I let him. He pleasured me in ways I hadn't experienced in years, and I lost myself completely in the moment. We moved from the bed to the floor, to David's chair, and I didn't care about the consequences. For 3 hours, Sly was all that existed. When it was over, he left with a smirk on his face, and I felt like my world had shattered. But the real horror was yet to come. When Sly left that day, I thought the worst of it was over. I believed that what had happened was a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness. But it didn't end there. Days later, Sly called me, asking me to come to his dorm at Caltech. When I refused, he sent me a video of everything that had happened in our bedroom. I was shocked, horrified. How had he done this? It turned out that Sly had placed a hidden camera on David's desk while I was in the bathroom. He had captured everything. The kiss, the intimacy, the moments I wished I could erase. But what terrified me the most was what he said next. If I didn't come to see him, he would send the video to David and to his father, my brother. I couldn't believe it. The sweet, charming boy who had once made me feel so alive had turned into something else, someone capable of blackmailing me. I felt trapped, suffocated by the weight of the secret, and powerless to stop him. Sly knew exactly what he was doing. He had planned this from the beginning, and I had walked right into his trap. The blackmail started small. He wanted money, of course, and I gave it to him, anything to keep him quiet. But then it escalated. He demanded more, not just money, but my time, my body. Sly made me sneak away from my family, meeting him in secret in places I would never have imagined. He took me in his dorm, in my car, even at a family reunion, forcing me to pretend like everything was normal while I was drowning in shame. I couldn't tell anyone. How could I? The man I loved, the father of my children, didn't know that his wife was being manipulated and blackmailed by her own nephew. The guilt and fear consumed me. Every time I looked at David, I felt like a fraud. He had no idea what was happening right under his nose. He still loved me, trusted me, and I was betraying him in the worst way possible. And then there were the children. David adored them, but I had my doubts, serious doubts. How could I tell him that the kids he loved so much, the ones he thought were his, might not be? How could I even think about doing that to him? But as the blackmail continued, the doubts grew stronger. I had no way of knowing for sure, but the timeline didn't add up, and the thought that Sly could be the father of my children haunted me every single day. Sly's demands didn't stop. In fact, they only grew. He became bolder, asking for more money, for more time, and making more outrageous demands. He was always one step ahead of me, always reminding me that he held the power. And the worst part? He enjoyed it. The smirk he wore every time we met made it clear that he knew he had control over me, and he loved it. I was terrified of what would happen if David found out. My marriage would be over. My family would be destroyed. I would lose everything, David, the kids, the life we had built. So I kept playing along, pretending like everything was fine, while my world crumbled around me. But the pressure was unbearable. I couldn't keep up with Sly's demands forever. He wanted a severance payment, an amount so outrageous I can't even mention it. It was his way of ending the blackmail, he claimed, but I knew it would never really end. Even if I paid him, even if he let me go, the damage was done. The secret would always be there, looming over me, waiting to destroy everything. I thought about running, disappearing from David's life before he ever found out. But how could I leave him? How could I leave the kids? I thought about confessing, but the fear of what would happen next paralyzed me. The guilt was killing me, but the fear of losing everything kept me silent. Now, I'm trapped in this nightmare, stuck between the life I had and the terrible decisions I made. Every time I see David smile at the kids, I wonder if they're even his. Every time I hear him say he loves me, I want to scream the truth, but I can't. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I even can. Sly is still in my life, lurking in the background, controlling my every move. And I'm still paying for that one moment of weakness, paying with my marriage, my happiness, and my sanity. I wish I could go back and undo it all, but it's too late. The damage is done, but I don't know how much longer I can keep this secret. Every day, it eats away at me. My marriage is a shell of what it once was, not because David has changed, but because I have. I'm not the woman he married anymore, and I haven't been for a long time. The lies, the blackmail, the guilt, it's all too much. But I'm stuck. Stuck between telling him the truth and losing everything, or continuing to live this lie and dying a little more inside every day. Sly hasn't gone away. He still haunts me, still holds power over me. The severance pay he's asking for is insane, but I'm considering paying it just to be free. Even though I know that it won't truly free me. The real prison is the guilt I carry, and no amount of money will take that away. No matter what happens, I'll always have to live with the consequences of my actions. I want to protect my family. I want to shield David and the kids from the truth. But how can I, when the truth is clawing its way to the surface every day? I see it in the mirror when I look at myself. I see it in David's eyes when he kisses me goodnight. And worst of all, I see it in Sly's smirk whenever he reminds me of what we did. I don't know how this ends. I don't know if I have the strength to tell David everything, or if I'll keep hiding behind the mask I've worn for so long. But what I do know is that this guilt is slowly destroying me, and eventually it will destroy everything I care about if I don't find a way to stop it. I want to believe that David deserves the truth, but I also know that the truth will break him. And I don't know if I can bear the thought of being the one to shatter the man who has loved me through everything, without even knowing the full story. But time is running out, and I have to decide soon. I just don't know what the right choice is anymore. All I know is that I'm scared, scared of what I've done, scared of what will happen next, and scared of the person I've become. If this story resonates with you, or if you want to hear more about real-life stories of betrayal and heartbreak, check out my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unfiltered content on love, relationships, and the tough choices we all face.